Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Endless Celts Podcast. We have been on a break, obviously, since international football, and we're delighted to be back to talk about actual football that we all give a fuck about. And I'm joined by Ross. How are you, mate?
I'm not bad, mate, but speak for yourself. You know, I like Scotland. Don't mind international break.
That's exactly why I've done
it. I'm good, mate. My headphones are all plugged in tonight, so there shouldn't be any interference. Wasn't my fault the last time. Somebody pulled it out when I wasn't looking. But
funny, you never left your seat once, and someone managed to put it out. Christoph comes in. Nice of you to join us this early on. Sam Fran, about fucking time. Hail. Stephen Murdoch's in, and we've got a few others as well. What I will suggest, by the way, there's the two of us on. If you just want to talk about anything, even the fallout from the Glasgow Derby game, I haven't really got my say across on it yet. I'm sure it'll come out in fits and bursts tonight at some point. But if you want to fire stuff in, we'll talk about it this Mondays for everybody as well. We're going to have I think Ross is having a cup of tea. I'm on the Coke Zero, trying to be good and all that. Look at that spot advertisement in it. Look at that. Not sponsored by Coke, obviously, but, if you want to, fair enough. But Ross, I mean, look, we're copycatting here a wee bit, but I like the wee segment anyway. It's just a wee 5-minute conversation. Open goal, do a wee thing of pet peeves before the start I think it's keeping the ball on the ground. I think some of them are funny. Have you got any that you would like to talk about?
It's funny because it popped into my head, I think it was last week, just obviously with it being on a couple of times, and I was driving along the motorway and building up a head of steam in the wee van, and the next minute the lorry pulls out in front of me. They overtake another lorry. It doesn't have enough speed to get past it, so you get totally held up, and then you've got a line of traffic at the back of you. That does my absolute nothing. Like if you've not got enough speed to overtake, just sit where you are. You're not going anywhere, but you're pissing everybody else off. And if there's any lorry drivers in the comments, I don't care. Just stop doing it.
We've got someone in from Belfast. Hail, nice of you to join us. I think you're a new name, so if you want to like and subscribe and all that fun stuff, then go ahead. I mean, for myself, pet peeves, and we were talking before we came on there about you were thinking about a pet peeve, but it went out of your head. It's when you have something in your head and you go to say it and you forget. That fucking annoys me because it's usually golden. But see, to be fair, my mum and grandparents always used to say, if you forget what you're going to say, it's usually a lie. So I don't know if that's true either. It's a wives' tale, I suppose. So I don't really know. I mean, pet peeves and, for myself, people expecting niceties from you when they don't give you it back. I don't know where you get that from. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that kind of one for me, all that type of shit. And then international football, it is a bane of my life. It's just, I know you like it, but I think you got pumped by Greece, didn't you? You got pumped by Greece.
We beat Greece 1-0 over in Greece on the Thursday. Came back. I'll be honest with you. After the second half performance over there, I feel like we go to jail a wee bit. The keeper wasn't making loads of brilliant saves or that, but Greece totally pinned us in. You could see they were a better team than Scotland. I didn't think they would have turned us over as easily as they did. Greece played well on the night in the second leg, and Scotland were utter guff. So that was just two really bad combinations for Scotland, and they went down 3-0. But they deserved to lose over the two legs. Greece were the far better team, but it doesn't bode well for the qualifying, the World Cup qualifying group, because Greece are in it along with Denmark. So, I mean, on paper, Scotland are the third best team in that group out of four. So it's an uphill task, but they've defied the odds before. Let's hope they can do it again.
I've seen that there's been a few shouts for your man, Steve Clarke, I'm saying like I don't know him, Steve Clarke, to leave Scotland. Are you on the same boat as that?
I'll be honest with you, after the Euros, I was kind of thinking, I don't know how much further he can sort of take us. And I felt like, I think I've been over this before on the podcast, that he changed to a back four after the Euros to accommodate Ralston. And I feel like he could have done it, obviously with the benefit of hindsight. I feel like he could have and probably should have done that for the Euros, but I totally understood why he didn't, because you're changing your sort of formation that you've relied upon to get you to the Euros, and then for to change that right close to a tournament and ask the players to go and do it a completely different style to what they've been used to is a big ask. So I understood why he didn't do it. It started to work, but in the last 2 games there, I feel like he stuck with guys that he probably shouldn't have, like Kenny McLean, Grant Hanley. Hanley done well in the first game, to be fair, but he's not good enough. For me, he shouldn't be starting. It should be McKenna in the middle of that defence. And for to then start the second game, taking Lewis Ferguson out and putting Christie in and still keeping McLean in the team was totally bizarre to me. You could see that Ferguson was breaking the lines and stuff in the first game, whereas Kenny McLean doesn't do that. He's no Scotland level. He's just no good enough. But Clark seems to stick with him off the back of that last-minute goal in Norway. So for me, that was 2 big mistakes, and there was a lot of negative sort of like decisions. But Greece were a better team. We have to remember that. Whether he played McLean or whether he played Ferguson, it might not have made much difference. But for me, he shouldn't be playing Kenny McLean for Scotland now. He's relying. He's been too loyal.
That's what I was going to say. Is he accommodating players too much out of loyalty? We've seen this with international teams in the past, like keeping the old guard in instead of bringing a new guard through. And Kenny McLean's 33, 34 now. Grant Hanley feels like he's been around for ages. He's a footballer that never seems to kind of disappear, but he's there on merit, I suppose, as well. And then I look at
sorry, on you go.
No, I was going to say I look at the team as a whole, and look, I'm no Scotland expert in terms of their national team, but they've got good players like Ferguson, Billy Gilmore, Cal McGregor's retired now, so there's space for them players to come in. But is he stifling the likes of them by sticking with the players that he trusts? Is that a bad thing?
You talk about Grant Hanley. I mean, he kind of got a game for Birmingham now, and he's still picking him over Scott McKenna, who's playing, as far as I'm aware, week in, week out in La Liga. I think he's a younger, better option than Grant Hanley now, and he should be going with him. Whether it be Suter or somebody else alongside him, I think Suter done pretty well over the 2 games. So I wouldn't be adverse to him being alongside him. I like Porteous, but he is a bit erratic. But
my guy,
there was a couple of like in-game decisions, certainly in that second game. He took off. He brought on Lewis Ferguson, I think, and he took off Billy Gilmore. I couldn't understand it. Why not take off Kenny McLean? Keep Gilmore on. He's one of our best midfielders by a distance. What was that, Ross? What?
Oh, Ross, you look a bit like Steve Clark. Give us a bye-bye, Rangers.
Bye, Rangers.
What do you think about this shout? Wee McCann, give him an opportunity in the team?
I was absolutely stunned that he wasn't in the squad. I'm not saying he would start, but he should be off the back of his performances for Celtic this season. I felt like he deserved to be in the squad. I understood why guys like the laddie Miller was selected in the squad. I didn't think he would play. It was just to get him in and around it because, I mean, he probably will be the future of Scotland's midfield. So it was good to see him getting in and around it. The young boy for Hearts, I think it's Wilson. Again, good to give him the experience. He did get on. I dare say if the game had been closer, he wouldn't have got on, but because it was like 3-0, it was basically done, but he was also a more attacking player. That's why I think he got on before Miller did. But for they 2 guys to be in the squad and for Luke McCown to be overlooked, and again, listen, maybe it's just me, but I think Kenny McLean's shite. I really do. I think he's no good. He's just no good. He's no good enough for Scotland. He's playing at Norwich. I don't even know if he's playing every week. But for me, Luke McCown should have been in that squad 100%.
Yeah, and shadow play of McCown's great granny and her dog is from Ireland. He'll take him in the Irish team. He's a decent player for us, especially. I mean, before we move on, there was a Greece player. I think you actually highlighted him, Ross. I can't remember his name, but he was like 17, 18, and he ran the show. Is he one for you that you look at him and be like, he's going to be a superstar and going to make it to the top. I know he's at Genk, isn't he, at the minute? And
I think he is.
He's worth around 8 to 10 million euros. Could Celtic take a punt on him? Maybe his performances are just going to put him out of the price range for us. Like,
to be honest, we had never heard of the laddie until he came up against Scotland, but he came on in the first game and he was outstanding. He sort of changed the game. It wasn't the only one, but he helped change the game. Certainly the flow of the game in Greece's favour. And then in the second game, he gets his goal. He affected the game again, 17-year-old. He looks a really, really good player. One of the guys that wants to go and make things happen. Again, like we've spoken in the past, obviously the Georgian boy, they're few and far between these guys. He looks like another one that sort of wants to play off the cuff and make things happen. He really impressed me. You say his fee is 10 million euros. Listen, Celtic could afford that, but I think commentators, I'm no expert on him, but the commentators were alluding to the fact that the sort of bigger teams are circling. I think that he's only 17, but I expect his next move, he'll probably go to one of the bigger clubs. If he keeps obviously going with the trajectory that he has been and performs the way he did against Scotland most weeks for Genk, then I don't see. Well, it'd be great if we could get him sort of at an Engels fee and get him in there and have him for 2 or 3 seasons. That would be an ideal scenario. But I think he's going to that level, that next level earlier than what an Engels probably. Well, definitely earlier than what an Engels is because he's at Celtic. But I think his trajectory is going to bypass Celtic and go to a bigger team.
I've seen his goal. He took it well. He looks a really kind of elegant, classy player on the ball and can manipulate it, can take it in tight areas, and he's got a wee burst of speed about him. I know this is bad because I can't say the George's name. I'm not going to say it, but everyone knows who I'm talking about.
I can't say it either.
I'm not even going to attempt it. I was going to attempt it, but like no chance. He's PSG player, isn't he? You'll know from that, don't you? He's kind of similar to him, maybe not the speed, but the skill and technique and things like that. So he's definitely one to look for the future anyway. But Ross, we'll move ahead to the game at the weekend, Celtic against Hearts. We were finally back at that Parkhead. You know, it was a comfortable 3-0 win in the end, but as we always do, we'll go into the game in more depth. And just found it interesting. I don't know if you've seen it online. There was a weird door at Celtic Park that Compton, it looked like he was doing the advert or, I don't know, season ticket campaign or something. It's just strange. Did you see it?
I seen it. Well, the one I seen, it was a video for somebody in the crowd, I think. So you seen it for the side where he was going through the door. But I don't really know what it was. So somebody had mentioned in the comments, I think, that it was maybe filming for the Christmas advert. Who knows? But it was very weird.
It was strange. Just walking through a single pan door to go to the other side and pretend he's all surprised. But who knows? Probably is for the Christmas advert. But one of the major talking points get into it. Obviously, Kasper Schmeichel picked up an injury on Denmark duty against Portugal. Funny enough, he saved a penalty in that game from Cristiano Ronaldo. I mean, the flack that I seen him take off Danish media and the former players, so to speak, as well, kind of coming out and, you know, there was a reference towards a fatal disease that he looked like he was playing with that. I'm not going to say it, obviously. If people seen the headlines, they know what I'm talking about. There was also people saying he was obese and he's not fit. He picked up a shoulder injury and he couldn't carry on, and Denmark didn't have any substitutions, and he had to play on, and he had to make do with what he had, and he was trying to make one-arm saves and all. He was still giving his all, and you could unfortunately hear him, you know, in agony in some parts of the game. Do you know what I mean? But Sinisalo, Ross, has come in for the game against Hearts, and we've all been really asking what's his role, when's he going to step up. And he done well in the cup game, but albeit he didn't really get tested. How did you feel with that getting into this game off the back of the Glasgow Derby defeat? Was there a wee bit of trepidation of losing the likes of Schmeichel and his experience and his know-how and you know, and the way he gets on like a second captain behind Callum McGregor? Was there any, you know, anxiousness getting into this game without him?
I wouldn't say there was anxiousness going into the game. I think that initially, when certainly for myself, when I heard that Schmeichel had obviously got a fairly bad injury, who knows how long he's going to be out? I don't even think we know as yet. But initial reaction was, oh no, he's one of our big players, and everybody has made the case this season that he has took a sort of build out for the back onto another level for what Joe Hart did, and I think that can't be argued. So you felt like you were going to miss that. His distribution, I think, is really good, and obviously he's a top class keeper, and he's a great shot stopper, and I expected Celtic to face some shots against Hearts, albeit it probably didn't turn out too bad. But then you look at it and you go, right, okay, Sinisal's came in, he's played a game before, I think once, but I think he's a Finnish international. Correct me if I'm wrong, is he their number one? Number one?
So number two. I think he's got 3 or 4 caps.
Right. Yeah. Well, listen, I think he's been at Aston Villa. He's been out on loan at a couple of other teams. He done very well for me on Saturday, and I think he looked pretty assured with the ball at his feet as well. Yeah. Listen, I'm not saying he's as good as Schmeichel and he's going to oust him, or Schmeichel will find it difficult to dislodge him when he does get back fit. But I think on the evidence of that one game, I think he looked good with the ball at his feet. He made a save when he was asked to make a save. Wasn't very often, but it was a good early save in the first half. He wasn't, I don't remember too much other times, but he seemed quite vocal. He wanted to be a bit of an organiser. So overall, I was impressed with his performance, albeit, as I've said, it wasn't, he wasn't overworked, but what he did have to do, he done fairly well.
Yeah, he looks, well, he sounds and looks pretty assured in himself. I mean, he done an interview recently, or it may have been after the game, talking about the fact that he's learned how to push for that kind of number one position, and he's learning that from Kasper Schmeichel. He was one of his heroes growing up, but I think he mentioned it as well. As a goalkeeper, one of his old coaches said to him, you have to kind of walk the line of arrogance, but not get over that line, and that's what he's trying to do. And I noticed that very early on. He was very focal. In that game, do you know what I mean? It's a big game. Hearts are one of the informed teams of the country. So as you said, Ross, you're expecting some shots to be hit on target. I think there was one. The first, was it from a corner kick? It came into the box and he saved it down low and pushed it away. And he was getting this distribution. He was taking the ball quick, as all Celtic keepers seem to be doing in the last couple of years, especially under Ange and Roger just continued in that reign. But he does look assured, and he has 3 or 4 caps for Finland. And someone said in the comments that John McGinn rated him highly when he was in the Aston Villa Academy. So, people like that aren't going to give you praise for absolutely nothing. But moving into the game, it's we're coming off the back of a horrendous result against Sevco. 2 weeks to kind of let it boil over in your mind and go over it, and what we could have done better, what we could have fixed, what we could have, game plans and tactics, even though we're not managers by any stretch, but you always try and come up with some solutions in your mind. But as you know, I was absolutely fuming after the Rangers game. I still am a wee bit. I know we all were, but I still am a wee bit. I don't think I've really got over it because we were horrendous. But as I said, we'll probably come on to some of that later on the podcast once we talk about the Hearts game. But yeah, brief summary, Ross. I mean, the first goal, it was a Cal McGregor back in the team. Beautiful through ball, but we kind of broke up the play, won it deep in our half, couple of passes in the midfield. Calmack with a lovely through ball to Daizen Maeda. I mean, the guy is, and I don't know. Rodgers even said he's going to try and give him a more lucrative deal. He deserves all that money, and he spoke to Dermot Desmond about him and stuff. And the impact he's had since Kyogo's left has been incredible. The impact he was having on the wing was just as good, but I think for me, he's took his game on to another level. And, the whole striker debate, and I think Rodgers even talked about it, that maybe he will alter his view in the summer and go for a winger instead of a striker because it'll be easier to get a winger. And I think he said that quite recently. But, it's one of them ones. Look, you don't like to think ill of people or whatever, but Kyogo's went the reins and it hasn't worked out for him. Look, I hope it does. I hope he kicks on in France and he gets a couple of goals under his belt and starts in that. But Maeda's just went, here, you give me that number 9 jersey, metaphorically, and took it and absolutely ran with it, hasn't he?
He's been outstanding. Listen, I made the case at the end of the January window that, well, I think everybody was aware that he could go and play that position. I feel like I was a bit more calm about it than maybe some other folk were, and the fact that we didn't obviously get that other striker in, which was disappointing. But I still always felt that because we signed Jota, I still felt that because Maeda can play two positions and Jota can play two positions, I felt like it made our front three stronger. But that's by the by. Maeda himself, he's, as I said, he's been outstanding. I actually didn't think myself that he would have been just as good as what he has been through the middle. I knew he could do it, but he's been phenomenal, and it just looks like every time he walks onto the pitch, every time he gets a chance, it just feels like the ball's going to hit the back of the net, and inevitably, almost every time does. That was the case on Saturday. You talk about the first goal there, Cal McGregor. It's a brilliant through ball, and I felt like certainly the first half, I felt like he looked a lot fresher. It looked like he obviously he was injured, but he benefited for that sort of break, and he looked really fresh. And listen, I'm not saying Cal McGregor would have made a huge difference against Rangers, but just Hearts don't, or they were pressing early on. They were pressing fairly well, but they didn't keep it up. Celtic found solutions easier to break the Hearts press than what they did the Rangers press. That might
totally
be because Cal with me or that.
Yeah, no, with you. I'm agreeing with what you're saying. Yeah.
Aye. I feel like Cal McGregor, certainly in that first goal, albeit he's playing that deeper role, he breaks the lines to an extent and he finds that space, as Cal McGregor does. And I felt like we did miss that in the game against Rangers. Whether it would have been the difference, we don't know. That you're just sort of guessing. But he broke the line. He found his set. He always finds his selling space, Cal McGregor, and he finds that pass. Perfect weight for Daizen Maeda, who at times he's run perfect. And can it be ignored just how good a finish that is? Like, all he does is open out his body, and it looks simple, but he opens out his body, he shows the composure, and he finds that corner. Probably has to get it right in the corner, or otherwise Craig Gordon's getting a foot on it. It's too near him. It was just a tremendous finish, and that is the confidence that Daizen Maeda is playing with, and it's brilliant to see. When he plays wide, he has got the sort of, and it's been few and far between this season, even when he was playing out wide, where he has the moments, what you like to call a Daizen Maeda moment, where it's the quality kind of goes, and you're like, only Daizen Maeda could make an arse at that much. But when he's through the middle, he's not having to do that sort of winger role, and most of the time it's instinctive finishing, and he's got it in his locker, but even better than what I thought he did. Listen, even when he played out wide, he just knew where to be in the box, and that's how he picked up a lot of his goals. He was just in the right place at the right time. But he's getting balls, he's running onto balls now, and like that first goal, and finding a finish where, let's be honest, as much as I love Kyogo, and I'm not saying that Daizen Maeda is better than Kyogo, I'm not saying Kyogo is better than Daizen Maeda, but that chance that Maeda scored, that was basically our first shot on target, I think. That falls to Kyogo. I'm getting to the stage now where Kyogo sometimes needed 2-3 chances before he got his goal.
Yep.
I would say, listen, Daizen Maeda might get another chance like that in the next game and miss it. But for me, I'm looking at that chance now, and I feel as confident, if not more confident, Maeda will stick it away than what I would have been with Kyogo. Kyogo was more, listen, he found some really good finishes for outside the box and that as well. Obviously, the game against Rangers at Celtic Park last season, the volley at Ibrox, he's got that in his locker as well. But he always, I think Kyogo, he liked to get the ones running across the front of the defender and that Ange style of play. He done well with Brendan Rodgers, but he wasn't always getting that opportunity to run across the face of defenders. I think the way we're set up now, Daizen Maeda looks more suited to the Rodgers style as a striker because he's more physical than Kyogo. and he's got every bit as much pace. I don't know if he's probably not a technically better player than Kyogo, but I think he's showing signs as to why the Japan manager was picking him as the number 9 over Kyogo.
I think, Ross, I think he's just eggs cold. He's turned into an absolute killer when he's 1-on-1 with the keeper. And like you said, I mean, the amount of times we've seen Kyogo 1-on-1 with the keeper and he kind of dilly-dallies and he gets the ball stuck under his feet, or he hits a shot and he means to chip it, or he hits it wide. And look, we all know he is a fantastic footballer. But I agree with what you're saying. I think he was more instinctive, like you said, them first touch finishes in the box and reacting to the ball being loose in the box. And I think Daizen does that as well. But I think he's improved his composure. He's improved his game awareness and his touch, and he's linking up play. He's coming deep and he's playing the ball wide and he's making the runs in behind. And, that's all you can really ask for a centre forward. And Kyogo was special, 100%. But I just think Maeda, like you said, he's so robust and he's much more aggressive. He just wants to get in about it and hustle and harry the defenders and the goalkeepers. And the first goal was the epitome of that. It was a brilliant through ball by Calmac, and he just ran onto it like lightning. The Hearts defence tried to play him offside, but he starts his run so deep, you're never playing him offside because he's already sprinting. And Calmac sees it, and he plays it through, and they have no chance of getting it. I was going to say to you as well, has there ever been an ex-Celtic player who moans as much as Craig Gordon when Celtic scores a goal? It's insane. The amount of times that he goes apeshit every time Celtic score. It's like, what?
I know what you mean. He does do that, but I mean, how many ex-Celtic goalkeepers play as often as Craig Gordon has at Parkhead or against Celtic after they leave Celtic? They would maybe be the same, but listen, he used to play for Celtic, and he won trophies at Celtic. He's a winner, and he's been a top keeper, and he still is a top keeper for me. Obviously, he's coming to nearing the end now, but he's still a good goalkeeper, and he wants to go back to the club where he had his definitely had his most successful period in terms of trophy haul and clean sheets and whatever else. And he wants to go and make an impression and still show the fans that enjoyed him playing in goal for Celtic that he can still do it. And if the guys in front of him are not defending right, or if he feels like there's an injustice, then I've got no problem with Craig Gordon being angry and pissed off. He wants to win. He's been a winner his full career, and he wants to continue that. Listen, he does moan. It's clear to see, but I've not got a massive issue with it.
Maybe it's just me being petty. I'm never petty, really. I'm a Ross. It's just holding grudges and all that. I think Chris, you can't slag him off. He was an invincible player. He was a brilliant goalkeeper for us as well. I mean, we took him in when he was injured for like 2 years, and brought him back to fitness. Stevie Woods in the goalkeeping department did a great job. That probably is why he's still playing into 42, 43. He missed a couple of years of football, so you never know. He might be up between the sticks for Hearts for many more years to come, maybe until he's 50. I don't know what the world record is. Big Dom comes in. Brendan said we're more likely to buy another winger rather than play Maeda in that position, 100%. Tommy, I think it's because he knows what he's missing. Could be, but I think, we've moved on to bigger and better things. P. McLaughlin, big error letting Gordon leave COVID season, I think, to be fair. And Sam Fran, Eddie's Panenka apparently broke Gordon. Yeah, I did. I killed him. I definitely killed him. But second goal, Ross, Kuhn, who I thought was much, much better against Hearts. He was more direct. He was trying things again. Don't know what's been going on with him recently, but he played one of them clip balls into Daizen Maeda. He made the run. Maeda gets the head on it, hits the post. I like what you said about Maeda knew where to be in that position when he's playing off the left coming in. Jota comes in off the left like a ghost, smashes it past Craig Gordon, 2-0. And I think the impact, what's he on, 4 or 5 goals and 4 assists and 10 appearances since he's joined Celtic again from Rennes. And he's just slowly building his fitness back up. And I think Shadow Play said it there, that we're still waiting on him reaching his peak. And next season he could, again, take that on to a new level. But it's just seeing him contribute again, fitting in again, scoring goals, being a part of the play, and, finishing off for number 2.
Brilliant to see. Like, obviously, he wasn't involved too much in the actual build-up, but as you say, he knows where he knew where to be, and it was sort of the quickest to react off the back of what was as you touched on, good play for Kuhn. And what I liked about it was the minute, you know that unless Alistair Johnston overlaps Kuhn, he's more often than not going to come inside. And he's done that, and you've seen him doing it at that end at Celtic Park. You've seen him doing it numerous occasions. He obviously gets the goal against Leipzig in that fashion. I think we got a goal chopped off maybe against Bayern Munich, and it was in that fashion. For Aida ran across the front of Neuer,
Yes.
but it was Kuhn that came inside and he's hit that curler. But the minute he comes inside, I don't know if you noticed, but the minute he comes inside, Daizen Maeda's on his bike and he makes the run for the clip ball. Kuhn plays it perfect. And I mean, I have to say, Daizen Maeda is so unlucky that ball doesn't go in, but what a header it is, because he has to readjust himself, he has to readjust his body, and still manages to get enough on it, beats the keeper. If that's on target, I don't think Gordon's getting near it, but then it hits the post and you think the chances away, but Jota comes from nowhere. I was watching it in the telly, wasn't at the game, but I don't even think he's in the picture when it hits the post, but the minute it does, he's in there smashing it home. And you just, every time Jota scores a goal, you just see how much it means to him. Even before, when he was at Celtic before, he just enjoys it. His box office, when he scores a goal, he knows how to celebrate, he knows he looks good, and he just milks it, and he's brilliant at it. It was great to see again.
He done the iconic fist in the air one, didn't he, again? I think that one looked better than the one he done against Motherwell at Fair Park, to be fair. His arm really bent inwards, that first one he done. I was like, whoa, what is that? But it looked far better. He always does these iconic celebrations, and like you said, he milks it. But, I think he realises it's one of them ones, when you leave and actually come back again, you understand the importance of it. Do you know what I mean? Tommy comes in, great podcast, guys. Really appreciate that comment, mate. Thanks very much. But so that's the second goal. And I don't know about you, mate, but obviously there's been a lot of rumours and stuff about maybe Jota and Kuhn aren't seeing eye to eye. I've got to the point now where I'm literally looking at them when they're playing together to see if they interact and they high-five each other and do all this. And they do, to be fair. I don't know where that rumour came from. Apparently that was the rumour for a couple of weeks, that was a major player, Mike Kuhn's form dropped. But let's be fair, he was involved in two of the goals, and the third one, he broke down the right-hand side and he fizzed the ball in low along the 6-yard line, and there again was Daizen to put it in the back of the net.
Aye, it
was
another good goal. I think it's Hatate wins the ball in the middle of the park, and he slides, and it's like a tackle come pass, and it turns out a really good pass. And then obviously once Kuhn gets into that position where he's faced up and he can get down the outside, and he's running a defender with pace, there's only going to be one winner, and Maeda, he holds his run just nice so that Kuhn's obviously in front of him, and he's able to be onside then, and it's a simple finish. And that's that. At that point, the game's taken away for Hearts. And I think, actually, I don't know if you've got to come on to it, but at 2-0, young James Wilson, he has a really good chance for Hearts. Middle of the goal, header, and he knows he'll been seeing that all night. He knows that he should at least hit the target. He probably should score. And if it goes to 2-1, it might be a more difficult afternoon, but when it goes to 3-0, then the game's done. And the second half was a bit of a non-event. It was good to see Bernardo getting back on and getting in amongst it. But other than that, I don't remember too much. Cal McGregor had a shot. It was easily saved. But at this stage of the season, if you get the game done 3-0, you're ready to win the league. What, you 2 wins away now? You've got quarter-final of the cup, semi-final? Semi-final. Aye, semi-final. We beat Hibs. So we've got 2 games to win the cup, and we've got 2 games to win the league. You've got the game done 3-0. You don't need to overexert yourself. So as much as you want to see Celtic go on and get more goals, especially against Hearts, I think just see it out. Don't get any injuries. The game's done. Perfect performance after what obviously wasn't a perfect performance just before the international break. But we move a step closer and we're all happy.
Well, I think we know by now the league trophy is going to end up back at Celtic Park again. That's a given. The performances against them, you could talk about it. You literally are blue in the face. They're not acceptable, and hopefully that'll be rectified. But while we wrap up this game, there's something that's come back into my mind. We spoke about this on our group chat, but I'll come to that in a wee second, Ross. I'm after kind of finish up the Hearts game there on the weekend. I thought it was, like you said, it was nice that we take Calmac off the 70th minute, whatever mark it was, and bring Paulo Bernardo on. And I think one of the commentators on Celtic TV said that he never gave the ball away. I thought he looked really assured in that number 6 position, kind of passing it, just keeping it simple. You know what you were saying, that over asserting the play and not trying to force things. Seeing the ball out. Rogers always used to say you rest when you have possession, and we've seen that game out pretty easily. The James Wilson chance flashed across the 6-yard line. The amount of times I seen Shankland give that wee lad grief was incredible. All he done was shout at him all game. Every time the camera panned to him, he was just getting a barrage of abuse from Shankland. I would have told him to fuck up. No, I think they would have done my head like if someone was getting at me like that. But there's definitely promise with him in the future. But yeah, I mean, all in all, 3-0 seemed to be a packed crowd as well. There was good atmosphere about it. The Green Brigade and the boys group done their protest at the London Road police station before the game. That passed off peacefully by all accounts, and they were in the stadium making a good atmosphere again, which was great. There was no kettles or anything, which is another plus point. But I mean, overall, mate, as you said, we're 3 points closer to the title. We don't have to make all these great comebacks from 2-0 down and celebrate it like it's a league victory and put DVDs out. We see the game out comfortably. We'll win the game, but we'll go on about our business.
Aye, that's it. As I've said, we're a step closer to what could and hopefully will be another historic treble, a record-breaking treble, 9. We like the number 9, so let's hope we get it done.
Yeah, Robert Davey kind of corrects me here. Lots of empty seats. On the TV, it looked packed. I don't know if they used CGI or something, but it looked like at least 50-odd thousand was there, which is a good account, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, that kind of sums up the Hearts game. And there's something I wanted to talk to you about. We spoke about this in a group chat in the aftermath of the Glasgow Derby game, and we were speaking a lot of frustration. There was a lot of people having different opinions, and that's what it's all about. But there's something that I agreed with you on, and that was the fact that we're talking about, in the grand scheme of things, we've lost 2 games against them now, right? And the Ibrox one, and then the return leg at Parkhead, lost them, conceded 3 goals in both games, albeit we replied with 2 at our home game, but it wasn't good enough. And you spoke about giving them oxygen and that kind of room for belief that they could do something in the long term. Difference of opinions, obviously, we had in the chat. I think Anthony was saying, in his grand scheme of things, we're still winning the league and all that type of stuff. But I think the point we were trying to get across was, it's all well and good, but it's not acceptable. Now they're going to take kind of seeds from that and think they can press us and do this against us and, how we combat in the future. And I personally, Ross, like you said, we need to stand on them and stamp our authority all over this last game against them at Ibrox. And it's not a dead rubber to me. We need to take this back again and just put them in their place. Is that where you were coming from when you were saying that?
Aye, I'm not saying it's unacceptable to lose to Rangers. It can happen. We've lost 2 games in a row to them, and I think the last 3 we've conceded 3 in all of their games. We conceded 3 at Ibrox in the last season, the last away game against them. We conceded 3, so we are conceding a lot of goals. I'm not saying it's unacceptable to lose to Rangers, but for me, yes, we are still going to win the league. Hopefully we'll get a treble, and that's brilliant. But for me, the bigger picture going into next season is, if they go and beat us again at Ibrox, then, as you said, it gives them oxygen, it gives them belief. Listen, Celtic might go out and spend and strengthen, and it'll be fine, but I don't want to... The issue for me as well is, if we go and win the treble, that's brilliant. But if they beat us again at Ibrox, then they will say we beat them 3 times this season. They're in a quarter-final of a European trophy. So they will use anything and everything that they can to take the gloss off of us winning a treble. and as I've said, a record-breaking treble. So for me, I think that it doesn't take the gloss off it for me if we go and do that, but I don't want to give them anything, and I don't want them to have a shred of hope and be able to say to us that we beat these 3 times. For me, it's not. We obviously don't need to win that game at Ibrox for it to affect anything in the season, but for me, it's still your biggest rivals, and I know what they're like. I know what their fans are like. I watched Barry Ferguson the way how he was at Celtic Park getting that victory, and it meant so much to them. And Rangers beating us at Parkhead isn't going to affect where the destination of the league title is. But you better believe it hurt that they beat us, and you better believe that Barry Ferguson and all the Rangers fans enjoyed that. I don't want them to enjoy that again in the final game against us. Again, I reiterate, it will not affect where the destination of the league title goes. But if we're playing Rangers, I want to beat them. End off. And we need to go to Ibrox and beat them because they've beat us the last twice. And I can't remember the last time Rangers beat us 3 games in a row, but I don't want it to be anytime soon. So absolutely, we need to go to Ibrox and win. For me, it's a huge game, a huge Glasgow Derby game. Not in terms of points, but we cannot allow them to beat us three games in a row. Listen, Rangers, when they're on their game, they're a dangerous side, and they've shown that against us in the last 2 games. They've shown it in numerous games in Europe this season. When they come up against the lesser teams, for whatever reason, they come unstuck at times and they lack consistency. But if they beat us 3 in a row, that builds more belief in them. They're in the latter stages of a European competition. That builds more belief. And listen, again, I don't want them to beat us, but the only thing you could caveat it with and say, if they do go and beat us, then they can't ignore Barry Ferguson for the manager's job. And for me, if he gets the job long term, that won't be good for Rangers. Short term, he's done no bad for them, but long term it might be better for Celtic. But I'm not interested in that. We have to go to Ibrox and beat them, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm totally on board. A big Dom because when Rangers bring the stronger tactics to the derby games. There was another good comment up here by yourself as well. We've lost twice to Rangers because we struggle to deal with our high press. We spoke about that numerous times, Ross. And key man marking, we need to sort this out pronto. Strains of the doctor. I think about us playing Leipzig this season. Compare that to the way we went about our work against Sevco. Completely unacceptable to me. I mean, we spoke about that before in terms of that high press, the intensity they play that. Why is it, in your opinion, that we're struggling to match that? It can't be always the argument about complacency and some players know the league's done and blah, blah, blah. For me, you need to be up for these games. These are games you're up with fight, passion, aggression, all them cliche things that you say to get a club going. And Barry Ferguson would have obviously played in that for them, to be fair. And they obviously bought all what he said and went out and done the game plan to perfection, I suppose. But why do you think that we can't match that? Do we need to adapt our style? Is Rodgers being a wee bit too stubborn, let's say?
I wouldn't say stubborn. I think that Rodgers feels like, and I
don't put no fucking gel. My hair sits the way it sits. I don't care about it, but I appreciate that.
I've lost my train of thought there. What was
I'm saying? Is Rodgers being too stubborn with his tactics, consistently playing that way?
I wouldn't say it's stubborn. I feel like Rodgers, and I think he's right to feel like that. Rodgers feels like we've got the better players and we're the better team, which we are over the course of a season. But I think I said that's for me why he thinks he doesn't want to change his tactics, because he feels like the players and the tactics he's got are good enough to go and beat Rangers. And they are. But they haven't been in the last 2 games. But for me, I said it before the game. I did feel like Celtic were going to win the game, but I didn't think they would absolutely destroy Rangers. But I said before it that the thing about Celtic and Rangers right now is that Rangers know exactly what they were going to be facing, so they could prepare for it. Whereas Celtic are, Barry Ferguson's come in, he's made a few tweaks, he's done 3 at the back a couple of times, so we didn't quite know what we're going to face. But I think, listen, Celtic didn't move the ball quick enough, and that coupled with the fact, and it might have been, as I've said previously there, it might have been because Callum McGregor wasn't in the team. But whatever it was, they didn't move the ball quick enough. But coupled with the fact that Rangers' game plan was very good and they executed it really well for the off. And they two things together just worked obviously really bad against Celtic. And the fact that they got that early goal gave them that oxygen there in the lungs to go and have something to defend. And I felt like, I've said it before, I can't mind if I've said it on this, well, probably haven't, because I don't think I've been on since that Rangers game, but for me it was evident that Rangers had copied the way Bruges had set up and the way Young Boys had set up. I said it before the game as well, that we have to be careful of that. And when Celtic aren't moving the ball quick enough like they did that night against Bruges, which now is a pattern for me, so they're not moving the ball quick enough because teams like Bruges have started to work it out, and Rangers have, for me, copied that, and they're playing it across the back line. I've said it before, but so many times the ball goes to Alistair Johnson and he's not got a pass on, because the minute it goes out to him, that's their trigger to go, and he's either coming back inside where it's going to Carter Vickers, and then at that point, Alistair Johnson's got a man on him, so Vickers can't go back to him. And then that's when you see Kuhn running back at pace to give Carter Vickers an angle. And then Kuhn's picking up the ball at pace, facing his own goal. And it's just a fucking shambles. He's nowhere to go. He ends up putting himself into danger, and he looks bad. It's like a domino effect, and they need to work out. Well, I don't even know if it's so much needing to work out. I think when that's happening, they need to be more adaptable, and at that point, right, go, okay, right, we're trying to play it for the back, but they're pressing really well. They won't keep this up the full game because it's a big ask to do that, especially against teams like Rangers when we're at home. Go over the top, play it down the channels, mix it up a bit. Then you just keep doing the same thing and then get yourself into bother, and then it makes the fans nervous, the players nervous, and that's what happened against Rangers. In that first half, for large periods, they pressed us really well. The second half, Rangers will get themselves 2-0 in front, so at that point, they're not going to press as much as they did in the first half. They're going to try and be more compact and hold on to what they've got, and at that point, that's when Celtic get more space and become more free-flowing, and they get back into the game. And at that point, you think there's only going to be one winner, which there probably should have been. But when you go down 2-0, you're always susceptible to that counter-attack. And Rangers have shown in Europe this season that they can be compact, they can sit in deep and hit teams on the counter with pace. Listen, we can't legislate for the couple of mistakes that were made in that goal. But, I mean, you have to say, there was a couple of mistakes, but the finish is first class for Eagleman. You can't really argue with that finish. It was a really, really good goal. If Celtic do that, you're praising the striker, whoever it, like Kyogo's scored screamers in games against Rangers. You have to credit him. And at that point, then it's really difficult for Celtic to get back into the game. But you have to say as well, when they did get to 2-2, I didn't feel like they'd done enough to go and win the game. You felt like there was going to be one winner, but for whatever reason, they didn't go on and push as much as you expected and make Rangers go really deep. Again, maybe you have to credit Rangers for the way they defended. But overall, I felt like Celtic probably, well, they were the better footballing team over the piece, but Rangers' tactics on the day were, I don't know if they were better, but they certainly worked better. And I feel like maybe a draw would have been fair, but Rangers get that goal on the break and punishes for a shit show of a first half, really.
We were absolutely shambolic, and Stenzano, fuck man, butchering names again. No piss about at the back at the early part of the game. We invite pressure onto ourselves. I always remember that game. It wasn't pretty, but it was a Glasgow Derby game. It was Neil Lennon was in charge, and he told the team to put the ball at the corner flag for the first minute of the game and keep them pressed in. Do you remember that? Maybe if we try something different like that. I just thought, for me, we lacked energy, we lacked belief. As you said, AJ was in corridors and he wasn't getting out of them. He was playing the safe ball all the time. The whole team was safe. The whole team were crap. But, without getting into the game, we've talked about it. With other podcasts have spoken about it. I thought you spoke well there, Ross, in terms of what we need to do better, hopefully get into this game at Ibrox. But one player that came in out of the blue was Naraki. And he played the full 90, and then he played the full 90 against Hearts. And by all accounts, he's the only one that committed a Derby game at pass marks. He played really well against Hearts. For me, he's just a tough tackling centre back. He wins the headers, he wins the duels, he reads the game well. And it's a bit mad to say that like the likes of Daizen Maeda was getting in the Champions League team ahead of him. Trusty, when he was having the bad spell, Scales was having this bad spell. Narosky was nowhere to be seen. Do you think that he has a future, or when the main players are back, is he going to be bombed again? I just think for me, he's come in, he's done his job, and there's no frills, no spills, but he's been solid, mate, and that's what you need sometimes in the centre of defence, just to do the simple things well.
Well, to be fair to him, he's came in and he's played 2 games alongside Carter Vickers, and for me, I think he's probably been the better defender out of the 2. I'm not saying that he's a better defender than Carter Vickers, but over the 2 games, I feel like he's defended better than Carter Vickers did. I thought Carter Vickers, in the early part of the game on Saturday against, I can't remember the Hearts player's name, the striker he was up against. He seemed to like
Kabangu,
whatever it was, but he was throwing his cell to the ground and stuff like that quite often. But Carter Vickers was being a bit erratic for me, and he was giving the referee opportunities to blow for fouls, and he wasn't great the early part of the game, but then he settled and he was all right. But Nawrocki, for me, he's, as you say, he's defended really well. I think that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he is more a right-sided defender.
Yeah,
so
he's right-sided, yeah.
He's probably, when everybody's fit, he's probably not going to play because Carter Vickers will always be in the team. He's come in and played on the other side, and I think for the most part, as you've said, he's defended, he's tackled really well. I think you maybe find that he's got that sort of wee sections of the game stages where the ball's maybe no moving across that back line as quick as you would like. He's suffering for that Carl Starfelt kind of syndrome where he was playing on the wrong side, so it doesn't flow as well as what you would like across that back line. But that's not Nawrocki's fault. He's coming in and playing on the opposite side of the defence where he's more comfortable. But he's come in, he's done really well. I think for me, but I've seen him in the last couple of games, I think that, well, listen, you would have to see him over a longer period of time, but because of what I've said, that Carter Vickers will always play, he's never going to be a first choice for Celtic because he's not better than him. And I wouldn't obviously play him on the other side before a Trusty, maybe even a Scales, just because the more sort of free-flowing the set, if you like. Yeah. So it's a tough one for the guy. Carter Vickers is not going to be here forever. I think Nawrocki's 24, but I mean, touch wood, touch hairy wood, but you don't want Carter Vickers to leave. But if he did leave, I don't think for me that Nawrocki could be the direct replacement. He's well off of that, but he's come in, he's done really well. Similar to, and it's been 2 domestic games, and one of them has been against Rangers, albeit we conceded 3 goals. But I don't think you could lay the blame at his door for any of the goals. Similar to like a Ralston, I think that if he comes in Scotland, he'll be able to come in and do a steady job. Mm-hmm. But if he was to come in for Carter Vickers and have to replace him in a big European game, I think it would be a bit more precarious. let's say. But I think he's a decent player. He's not had much of a chance at Celtic. Similar, listen, it's not exactly the same because he's still at the club, but is he a similar type of defender to Eric Sviatchenko? And Rodgers maybe just doesn't fancy him just because he's not as
He
mobile.
didn't like him. He didn't like him, didn't he? No?
Listen, Sviatchenko wasn't blessed with brilliant pace, but he could defend. He was a really good defender. His primary job he was good at, but the other jobs that Brendan Rodgers wants his defender to do, maybe he wasn't just as good at, and maybe that'll be what happens with Navrocki. Maybe that's why he's not playing week in, week out, other than the fact that he plays on the same side as Carter Vickers. But I think he's a decent player. I think he deserves maybe more of a chance, maybe get to see him a bit more. But it's a difficult one to say that he could be a Celtic first choice. At the moment, he's a good bit away for that. But the last 2 games he's done, he's self no harm.
It's just going to be an interesting situation come the summer because obviously Naraki and Larkin Bielka both combined fees of $8.5 million, I believe, was spent on them. And one's on loan in Holland and doing quite well, and the others come into the team quite recently for us and Naraki. And it's just interesting to see what their future lies. I personally believe that he'll be away. I think Shadowplay said it in the comments as well that he thinks he'll be away in the summer, and Rodgers' long-term plan is to develop Daizen Maeda into that starting choice centre half whenever that may be. But it's just an interesting thing to keep your eye on. And I'm going to break it up here before we end the podcast. And we always talk about Ross. We've had many conversations, James as well, on the podcast about that tough bastard in the squad, that tough player, And Give Me Sport done an interesting thing recently. And Ross, can you see the comments? Yeah,
I can.
Will you take care of them for just a couple of minutes? I'm just going to run through a couple of players here and talk about memories we have of them and things like that. There's some, hold my hands up, I have no memories of because some of them are in like the 60s and that. But Give Me Sport done a survey, or not a survey, like a top 10 of Celtic's toughest players. And we'll see if we agree, disagree type thing, and Ross, yourself as well. And in the comments, if anyone has different opinions, just let me know. But they had, if I can bring it up here, coming in at number 10 on the Give Me Sport top 10 toughest players for Celtic was John Yogi Hughes. By all accounts, he was a tough player and featured quite heavily in the 60s and all for Celtic. And I was going to ask you, Ross, do you have any memories of John Yogi Hughes? Any stories even from your people who supported Celtic back in the day? Or
to be honest with you, no really. No. Nah. Sorry to disappoint you, but not really.
It's fine. No. He's came 10th in the toughest players. I know his son features quite heavily in the Celtic State of Mind.
Aye.
And John Hughes as well. I do like his viewpoints when he's on there. So look, he came in at number 10. Any comments coming in about him? Because I can't see them. No. Well, if anyone else has toughest players, fire them in, and we'll talk about them as well. Number 9. I'm sure you might have memories of it.
There's one there coming in now.
There we go. Smell the glove. Yeah, and he's coming at number 10. Number 9 is Mick McCarthy. Big Irish man, Mick. And I love the interview when he's manager of Blackpool, and they're like, it can't get any worse. And he goes, it can. And it will.
My favourite Mick McCarthy clip is when I think he's a Wolves manager at the time, and the camera pans quite close to him, but it's coming from sort of like behind him, and I don't know what happens, but there's absolutely nothing there, but he gets a fright. He goes like that and like shits himself, and then you're like, the caption is that time Mick McCarthy shot it for absolutely nothing.
Is that when he's out the dugout?
Aye. He's just like in the sort of tunnel area, just outside it, and he just like fucking jumps, and there's like nothing there. It's quite funny to watch.
Funny he's in the toughest players for Celtic, and he's scared of his own shadow.
Okay.
Number 8 is any comments Mick McCarthy wise? No.
Just that Mick isn't
person. Yeah. No one's Roy Keane's favourite person. He's an absolute.
Put in is, I don't know if he'll be on the list, but Tommy 55
okay. Well, coming in number 8. Coming in at number 8 is Bertie Auld. Features
Oh,
number 8 on the list of top 10 toughest players on the Give Me Sport website. You know, everyone who talks about Bertie Auld, says he was a fantastic person, great storyteller, and that famous one about being in the tunnel against Inter Milan. But can they play? Can they play? It's you think of. I seen an interview recently with Jimmy Johnson, God rest him, and he was talking about being in the tunnel with these guys and looking up at them. They're like movie stars and all this stuff. But Jimmy Johnson saying to the players like, "I'm going to take you on, going to do this, going to do that." Just the absolute arrogance of it and the belief that they could do that was, incredible. To be fair, and Bertie Auld, I think, will always go down in Celtic folklore as a Celtic legend. Yeah, John
mm,
Mulaney, yeah, an absolute legend. Anyone who's been in his company talks about the stories. Shadow play. Never know. He might be. Talks about the
mm.
stories about Bertie Auld. He's a fantastic person and sadly missed within the Celtic community.
By
Coming
the
up,
way,
yeah.
one story I always remember about it, or probably everybody in the comments will know this one. I don't remember the referee, but it's something that happened in the game, and Bertie Auld went up to the ref and he says, "See if I called you a bastard, would you send me off?" And he says, "Aye." He says, see if I only thought you were a bastard, would you send me off?" He went, "No, because you've not actually said it." He went, "Well, I think you're a bastard."
That's incredible, isn't it? Only him could do that. Only him could do that.
Aye.
It's incredible. Number 7, Tommy 55 called him in, is Davy Hay. He
Uh-huh.
featured heavily on the list, and Robert Davy, but he was not afraid to put the boot in, 100%. Yeah, so another tough bastard, as Give Me Sport said. So Davy Hay features at number, was that 7? Coming in at number 5 is another enigma, Tommy Groverson, a signing from Real Madrid for £2 million. And oddly enough, for us, to be fair, he done really well in the Derby games, didn't he? He think he scored 2 against them at one point.
I think he's sure he scored a goal at Ibrox. Aye.
Yeah,
Remember
absolute
right.
enigma. I remember watching Open Goal and Mark Wilson was talking about him, and he was playing on the right hand side with him, and playing on the right hand side with Tommy Groverson, and Tommy used to fence her off, and he was like, "What the fuck am I meant to do?" Just used to do his own thing. Unbelievable. And that the whole
Aye.
morning Gordon, morning Gordon.
I've heard that a couple of times. Aye, he was just a maniac, wasn't he? How he ever
What,
played at
what, what,
Real Madrid is beyond me, right enough.
but like, honest, what did you think when we signed him? Did you think it was a good signing at the time?
Oh, I thought it. I mean, we were getting him for Real Madrid. I remembered him playing at Everton for a wee bit, and he was decent. Then he obviously gets a move to Real Madrid, which was absolutely wild. Then he comes to Celtic, and it's a big name. He's played in the Premier League, so for me, I did think he was going to be a good signing, and he was a decent signing. He was a physical presence, and he really
Mm-hmm.
suited that sort of Gordon. I was going to say Gordon Ramsay style, Gordon Strachan style. He was cutting me gas, mate, when he came in. Nah,
He was nuts.
he was a good player, and he suited that Gordon Strachan team, and that he was a big physical player, workmanlike, but he did have some good quality, and he was a
Mm-hmm.
presence on the field.
Well, you don't become an Everton legend and move to Real Madrid if there's no great shakes about you. And he was out recently in the press as well, defending Kasper Schmeichel. And there was a story about him going on pre-season or the youth team when he was bombed out the pre-season. I think it was it McCart or was it the other fella? I don't know. One of them went to the Groverson like, "You don't have to come. We're going to Ireland for pre-season." And he was like, "What do you mean? I'm coming. I'm captain. I'm taking corners. I'm taking penalties." He's just absolute nut job, like nut job. But yeah, coming in after Graverson at number 5, I believe, is Roy Aitken. Any memories of him, Ross, growing up?
Um, Not vivid ones, I would have to say. I was very young at the time. I
Feed
was
the Bird in that
probably
game, wasn't it? Feed the Bear, I
aye,
believe. Yeah.
aye,
It was,
aye. But vivid memories when he was played in the centenary team. I would have been maybe 8 then. So not much, but I've heard people say he was a really good defender, solid, didn't take any prisoners, and solid. That's why he's in, obviously, this list.
The list of the 10 toughest players to ever feature for Celtic. Coming in at, I think we're on number 4, is the big Swede, big Dolph, Johan Mjällby. What a player! What a player!
Class.
And it's John Mulaney at Feed the Bear. I mean, with Johan, the fact, if you've seen the shape he's in, he's incredible. He's just an incredible player. He came in as a midfielder, and then obviously Martin O'Neill put him into the back three with Fahar, and it just kind of took off from there, didn't it? He was just an incredible player for Celtic. Bobo Baldé alongside him as well. And he was probably, I mean, I would have thought Bobo Baldé would have featured in this list, but he's not for some reason. I would have thought Bobo would have been that tough player, but they'd give it the Johan Mjällby. He just oozed class. I thought he was different. He was quick across the ground. He could play, he could tackle, he could mix it up. And players like him, you hear the phrase "damn breed," but he was the all-round package for me, and he was just sensational while he was at Celtic.
He was brilliant. I don't know if you said there, but I think it was Joe Venglos that signed him. And I think that by all accounts, I think there was quite a few suitors down in England wanting him, but obviously the Henrik Larsson connection, I think he was in his ear at the international breaks and stuff like that, and he convinced him to come to Celtic, and I don't think he regretted it. He had a really good time at Celtic, obviously more so under Martin O'Neill. Him and Bobo Baldé, Ramon Vega came in for a wee spell. You had Val Harden, really good partnerships, and when one was injured and another one came in, you didn't lose anything. But solid player. Wouldn't like a slap in the mouth off him even now. He's well into his 50s now, but he still looks as fit as ever. Big Dolph Lundgren. Brilliant player.
He probably says that stunt double in the Expendables. He could probably play them roles, to be fair. I mean, he's an absolute machine. But I mean, see if you're looking at it, and I know we had some amazing legends there that we don't really recall, but they're on the list and they had to be talked about. If you looked at the last 20 or so years with Johan Mjällby, you've got Van Dijk, you've got your favourite player Boyata, you've got Verheeren, you've got Roman Vega, people like that, Varga as well. Where would you rank Mjällby in amongst that if you had to do like a top 3 list of central defenders that you've seen at Celtic? Would he feature in that?
I think it'd be difficult to leave him out. Let me think about this. I think Carter Vickers has to be up there. Just his performances in a Celtic jersey over the last, 3 years he's been here, 4 years.
Yep.
I mean, it would probably have to be in there, but you don't want to leave Van Dijk out, but if it's just in a Celtic jersey, I don't think he gets in the top 3. I think you possibly Carter Vickers gets in it, but the names I've mentioned, I think Valharden was fantastic. Mjällby was fantastic. Baldé was really good. He was a solid defender, but he was technically absolute gash. So he couldn't pass or that. So would he get into that? Yeah, I would maybe go Mjällby. Possibly Mjällby, Valharden, Carter Vickers.
Yeah, imagine that as a defensive free. That would be good for a 3-5-2, wasn't it? That'd be unbelievable. Coming up as well, let me see here. So that was number 4. At number 3, take a guess. Who do you think it will be?
Scott Brown.
Nope, not Scott Brown. It is Big Bad John.
Oh,
John Hartson features at number 3 on the list. And I don't think for me you can really argue with that. He was a player, like we talk about target man. We talk about, he couldn't run to save his life, but see hold-up play, see fending players off. And you always think about that goal at Anfield. He just swivels and just boom into the top bag. Incredible player. He failed at medical them cunts. We took advantage of it, brought him in, and he moulded in with that trio of Sutton and Larsson, didn't he? Albeit he wasn't the automatic starter all the time, but when he played, he made an impression. And people always speak about the Porto game, about him not being there and not affecting the game. Maybe that was a big impact on why we didn't get the game over the line. It could have been as a different option off the bench. But for me, like I had his DVD. Remember, was it the Welsh Dragon? I think it was called, when Celtic released it, and it showed all his goals. I think it was after like a milestone of maybe 50 or whatever amount of goals he had at the time, and the compilation was just incredible. Heading, as I said, volleys. He scored some amount of volleys as well, and he just got himself about. And you look at Alameda as the kind of modern day target man, but you look at John Hartson, you're like, there's levels to the game, really, isn't there? I mean, in terms of play, impact, and what you can do on the pitch. And for me, he had it all. Yeah, 100%. Smelled like he would destroy people now.
Aye. No, he did. He was for me. When he was signed, you thought, how's he going to get a game in this team when we've got Sutton and Larsson? But he came in and he got, I think he got over 100 goals for Celtic.
Mm-hmm.
He was, for me, he was a more natural finisher than Chris Sutton. And when he came in, Chris Sutton, he was a bit of a utility player, and he found himself playing different positions to, well, not so much accommodate John Hartson, but him like standing in for other players and playing different positions. You still had somebody that could come in and play the role that Sutton could play every bit as good. He was just a brilliant player, and I was delighted when we signed him. I knew, obviously, same as yourself, that he'd failed the medical at Rangers, and I had no issue with that. I knew, I'd seen him playing down in England. I knew he could come up here and really boss games with his power and strength, and I knew he could finish. So I was delighted when he signed, and he was just a fantastic player. And I would agree with most folks. Trainee thought that we did miss John Hartson in that European final, and it might well have been that he would have been the man to help us get over the line. Obviously, the fact that we get Baldy sent off doesn't help as well, but yeah. John Hartson would have made a difference that night. He definitely would have.
Yeah, even against tired bodies, tired minds, just to be in there, hustle and bustle, and just wreck them. As Smell the Glove said, destroy them. Who do you think comes in at number 2? It might surprise you. Surprise me.
Neil Lennon?
Not Neil Lennon. It is, in fact, another Irish maestro, and Roy Keane is number 2 on the list of the toughest players to ever feature for Celtic. And, the train of thought of the people who give my sport, I can understand it because of his career and longevity and what he represented at Manchester United. But for me, at Celtic, I don't think, he deserves to be on the list. Mm-hmm. But I can understand it. I can understand where they're coming from in terms of, that kind of hard man image type thing. I thought for me, his time at Celtic, people spoke about this before. He featured in the Clyde game, made his debut, got beat. It was embarrassing. He had one cracking game in Neil Lennon against them, and they ran the midfield. And that was probably his impact summed up. One game. Am I being too harsh?
I don't know if harsh is the word. Not far off accurate. Listen, it was a fleeting period at the end of his career. He probably fulfilled a boyhood dream to play for Celtic. He done that. Listen, Roy Keane was a fabulous player in his day, one of the best in his midfield role. But at Celtic, it was nearing the end, and if he didn't have a chip on his shoulder before, after the way he left Man United, that chip was bigger. And he came to Celtic with that chip on his shoulder, and he's had a go about the professionalism and stuff like that when he was there. But I think he would have been delighted to play for Celtic, and it was a fleeting period right at the end of his career. Forgetful, maybe harsh, but not absolutely wonderful either.
Nah, as you said, I think he had a major issue with how he left United at that time and took that kind of bird with him to us. And I think he even said himself his knees were gone and hips were gone, and we never were really going to get the best out of him. And that to me was, bar maybe Lundberg, that was the end of us signing. I was going to say has-beens, signing players that are past their best and from the EPL just to give them one last payday. Smell the Glove. Only remember King for Clyde and winning at Ibrox with Lennon in the midfield. Yeah, that was a game I was kind of talking about. They were both really good in that game, sensational in terms of what they brought. Who do you think comes in at number 1 then? Massimo Donati.
Shut up.
No. It's not even Boris Taylor. It is, in fact, Scott Brown. And for me, that's correct. I know. It's like it's almost like he's mid shape and he's standing up. And I don't know. But yeah, for me, that's a fitting way for that list to be. And I think Scott Brown, he's been the captain I remember most. My Celtic supporting days. Obviously, you think back O'Neill and stuff. You go back Johan Larsson and people like that, McNamara, getting into further years and stuff with Captain Steve McManus, and up again you have Cal McGregor and Scott Brown. Just for me, Scott Brown was sensational in what he was for the team. Was that captain, leader, legend type stuff, and invincible travel, quadruple travel, winning captain. Unfortunately, he left in that COVID season, and you get kind of the last memory. You have that picture of him in an empty stadium, and you want the silverware to kind of see him off, but it wasn't to be. And but I just thought for the time he was there, we signed him as that whippersnapper from Hibs, £4.4 million Scottish record. There was a lot of beef with him with some Celtic players, but that was soon put to bed. His work ethic, he played in the wing, played off the striker, and then eventually found himself in that holding midfield role. And Joey Barton come up and thought, it was going to be a walk in the park against people like Scott Brown. Scott Brown in that first Derby game when they were back in the league absolutely took him to school. And that was the type of him. Always with a point to prove, always done it the right way, sportsman-like, and I just thought he was sensational.
Aye, he was. And it was actually, it's funny, because obviously he was coming up against Neil Lennon as managers at the weekend there, but I think it was on Sky. They were interviewing both of them, and it was going over their clips. Obviously, Neil Lennon playing at Celtic and Brown coming through at Hibs and going, absolutely no fear. It's great to obviously highlight this because it's obviously the hard man type that we're talking about for the list. And he, at whatever age, I don't know, 20, 21, he's going head to head with Neil Lennon. He's going through the back of him and putting him up in the air. And they had that sort of needle on the pitch, but then that, as you say, that was put to bed when he came to Celtic. And listen, for this list, the one scene that epitomised Scott Brown for me was that instant at Aberdeen where they all tried to wipe him out. The ball was booted off him, and he just gets up and he looks at the fans and he goes, He just loves it. He loved the battle, and that's what he lived for. He was a wind-up merchant, but he loved the battle like over most other things. And he was just, as you said, a fantastic captain for Celtic. When he first came in, I wouldn't have said definitely would have been a Celtic captain, but my God, did he go into that role? And he obviously wasn't a Celtic supporter growing up. He came through at Hibs, but when he left Celtic, he was one of the guys you could call Mr. Celtic. He lives and breathes the club, and he still does to this day. I think he was on the panel for one of the Celtic games recently, and you seen he still had that rapport with Rodgers, and you still see that he has that love and wants the club to go and win, and he's ingrained in the club now, and he is a Celtic legend.
100%, and that was the top 10 toughest players according to Give Me Sport that's featured in a Celtic shirt. I mean, you talked about the Brown Neil Lennon game there. Obviously, Scott Brown's there, United won 2-0, quite convincingly, I think, on the day as well. But another big, massive news story that was Victor Wanyama has signed for Dunfermline until the end of the season. Unfortunately, I think it was 19 minutes into his debut, he got sent off for falling over the ball and handballing it away from their striker. Just looks it like, I don't know what was going through his mind. But, in terms of that signing, I think that is it's an ambitious move back Dunfermline. Like, he's still 33 years old. I know he hasn't featured. I mean, what was it? He left his last club. I think it was Montreal he played for with AJ. I think it was. He left them at the end of last season, so he's been at football for nearly a whole year. But I think that's a cracking move to get him back in. And it was just funny that, as you said, they're Brownie, Lenny, and Wanyama all pitting their wits against each other for Ayr and Dunfermline. Who would have thought it? But what did you make of that signing for them?
Oh, it was absolutely wild. I couldn't believe it. And what I couldn't believe more that was that Wanyama was only 33. But then when I thought about it, I was like, when he did first come in at Celtic, I think he was 19, and he right into the team and really affected it. And he was a solid, brilliant midfielder, the type of midfielder that I like. That it's a dying breed now. For me, that was an old school type of defender, and I think we desperately need a guy like that in our ranks, because as we all know, we've got nice, clever footballers, but we've not got somebody that can like just not so much grab the game by the scruff of the neck, but go and win a game sometimes when the technical football's no. And by the way, that's not saying Wanyama was technically a good player, but can go and win a game with that physicality when it's no working on the day and just bang guys out the road, win the ball, and just pull your team on with sheer power and strength. I'm not saying that Wanyama would be that player for Celtic now, but at 33 years old, I was amazed that he's went to Dunfermline. I didn't actually realise until you'd said there that he'd had a year out the game. So his fitness levels will be well off it. But a couple of games, there's not that many games left in the season, but 2 or 3 games, he should be up to speed enough to be able to do well and affect games for Dunfermline. Hopefully he keeps them up and then they can kick on, and hopefully Neil Lennon's the manager next season, he can kick on. And it would be good to see Neil Lennon back managing a team in the Scottish top league in Scotland. So hopefully that they can stay up and he can push on and get them up. That'd be good to see, because I think they've got new owners. So and obviously bringing Neil Lennon in, you can see they're looking to invest a lot more in the team than what maybe previous owners have done. If they can stay in the league, then things might be looking up for Dunfermline next season.
Yeah, it's quite ambitious. I know they've only got Lenny and Wanyama until the end of the season, but Lennon was very adamant, saying that the long-term ambition is for him to stay on if things go well and he keeps the club up in the championship. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, it's, as I always say, when new owners go into clubs in Scotland, they always have a look to see who they are, and it looks like they want to actually invest money in and spend money as well, which is quite exciting for the product as well. But it was just a funny turn of events. It seemed to happen so quick. It was Lenny, then when Yama came in, you're like, what the fuck? Do you know what I mean? And I also think Lenny got 2 of his 3 goals for Celtic against Dunfermline as well. What he was speaking about recently. Do you know what I mean? So
I scored a 8-1 win, I think.
Yep.
Dunfermline. Maloney scored in that game as well. Don't remember all the scorers. It was 8 goals, but I remember his celebration. It was because it was like one of the ones he never ever really scored, so he was like right up looking at the sky, and it was a decent finish if I remember right. I think it was just outside the box. He plays it low into the far right corner. Listen, Neil Lennon, when he first came in at Celtic, he came in 2000. I would have been maybe 17, 18, I think. And for that moment on, he came in and he was that old school type of midfielder where they were all around the game. That guy that just sat there, didn't do anything fancy, but he broke the play up and started attacks. And I've always said it, and I'll always maintain to say it, and I don't care if people laugh at me or not. There was players all around the world doing that job. There was guys like, I think it was Jeremy was doing it at Chelsea. I think there was another boy, forget his name now. I think he'd been at Chelsea as well. But
Makalele,
Makalele, aye, that's the one, aye. For me, just doing that job of breaking up the play and starting attacks, Neil Lennon for me could have done that at any club in the world, but he wasn't the fancy name. He done that job as well for Celtic as any of them did at the bigger clubs. I thought he was fantastic at it, and Neil Lennon was my hero. He came in at Celtic, he was my hero. He was my favourite player. Listen, I know Henrik Larsson was there, and you can't overlook him, but I think Neil Lennon, for me in that team, I think can't be underestimated just how good he was. And you obviously had guys like Paul Lambert, but for me, Neil Lennon was the real heartbeat of that Celtic team under Martin O'Neill, and he was a fantastic player.
Yeah, and obviously the documented abuse he had to take as well was disgusting, and how he pulled himself through that and his family. So I mean, you have to commend him for that. He's sensational, and that attitude and the determination to keep turning out week in, week in, week out for Celtic, the club he loved, was just infectious, to be fair. And here's hoping he does well at Dunfermline. But yeah, I mean, Ross, that brings us to the end of the podcast night. I think for me, I've actually really enjoyed it. It's been a good conversation, good chat. Getting back into it again. Have you enjoyed it, mate?
Aye, brilliant. Always, as I've said before, I always enjoy when you host. But aye, it's been really good, and we had a nice wee couple of weeks off there for the international break, recharge the batteries, and we're ready to go again. We obviously weren't on Friday to build up to the Hearts game, but I'm sure we'll be on this Friday. Who it will be, I don't know. But aye, good to get back into it and talk Celtic again and start looking towards the sort of end of the season and where the trophies get handed out, and I'm sure that Celtic will be there or thereabouts on all fronts.
The business end of the season, as Brendan Rodgers likes to call it. I've also noticed as well a few new commenters tonight, like shadow play and things like that. So if you're new to the channel, like and subscribe. We don't really say this all the time, but if you just want to, go ahead. We like the wee community we have, but we always want to grow as well. So share us wherever you want. Like and subscribe on YouTube so you don't miss a show, all that shit. But yeah, until Friday, everyone, stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.